Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Walls from New Energy. I was sitting in the workshop this morning and talking to a number of people at the tables I was sitting near, and I anticipated about 10 people being in this room and the other 250 sitting in the other room, so it was a bit overwhelming to walk in this morning and see so many interested people in this space, but it's a really exciting space. We've been working on this for a couple of years, and I'll sort of take you through our timeline and our history and what we've been doing. And one of the hardest things I had when I was given this topic was, how do I share all of the things we're learning in a really short space of time with a really diverse group of people? So I'm more than happy to share more and have longer conversations with anyone that's interested. What I have here is 4 things: who we are, our journey that we've been on, what we've been doing this year, because that's the most interesting, and then some of the learnings, and I've grouped them into I think about 6 categories and just tried to give you the high level things, and there's a lot of detail that goes in underneath that. Drillco 2019 Limited is the name of the company. That's the financial entity, and we have 2 parts, 2 brands within that company, and I put this slide up just to explain it so that you understand who's Drillco and who's New Energy. It's one company with 2 brands. The Drillco team, they focus on underground utilities. So it could be LV, MVHV, it could be 3 waters, could be fibre, a little bit of telecommunications and gas, and EV charging sits in that group. And then the New Energy team, that's where we're doing all our wind farm and solar project work. So a little bit about our journey. The company was founded by the previous owners back in 2010. We have experienced a lot of growth in the lower North Island, so we're headquartered in New Plymouth with an office in Fielding near Palmerston North. My wife and I, Hayley, purchased the company in 2019, and she tells me off every time I say it's my company because she reminds me it's our company. So I had to put her in there. So we've been in ownership there for about 4 years. And in 2021, we really focused in, we're a couple of years into owning the business, we focused in on our strategy. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? Where do we see the future? And we talked to a lot of people. We ended up engaging through some experiences and time we spent overseas with a lot of companies in Europe, a lot of companies in North America, and a handful of companies in Australia. And so we focused down into the solar space and decided back in 2021 that's part of our strategy that we wanted to build and learn from. So we spent a couple of years talking to lots of people around the world about their learnings and their experiences, and we're trying to build that back into the team in New Zealand. First projects kicked off very late in 2022, and I'll take you through some of those in a moment. And then in 2023, the New Energy team will have 6 projects. Hopefully some of those will be finished and some of those will still be in construction at the end of this year. So this year we have the 6 projects here. I'll just click on them all so they all come up. We completed a wind farm reticulation, so our expertise is that underground utilities part of the wind. So we delivered that down in Gore earlier this year. We've got a mechanical and electrical project that we've delivered in Gisborne, and then a civil, mechanical and electrical component of a project in Kaitaia, and the same at Edgecombe, and we're hopeful that we've got 2 more projects that will be kicking off this side of Christmas. I took all of the things that we've been working on and learning over the last few years, and I tried to get it down into a short list. And this was my short list of the sort of top 6 things. And I'm going to talk about these in a little bit of detail on the next slide. So interface, getting those parties to all work together well, the design of the plant and us engaging with the people that have produced the design so that we understand exactly what's being asked for and we're not missing things and there's no gaps in information. Our ability to estimate both the scope, the program, and the whole accuracy of that process, that's been a massive learning for us. Logistics, we rely on lots of other pieces of equipment coming together, some from a long way away, some from local, and just getting that logistics function working really well. Having the right equipment on sites, so no 2 sites are exactly the same. Matt talked a little bit about topography. So that's a challenge that you need different equipment for if you're on a flat site, a dry site, a wet site, a windy site. They're all a bit different. And then people, this is probably the question I get asked most often. We focused a lot on this in the early days because we talked to some of the international construction companies overseas and they said, we have 400 mechanical people on site putting solar together And every week we have 10% turnover. So they hired 40 new people a week just to keep the program running. So we focus a lot on the quality of people, the quantity being the number of people we need, and then the capacity. So that's the skills we give them to be able to deliver different parts of the project. One of the key things, and I can't stress this enough, is that learning we had around interface. And so when we did a lot of risk workshops and that back in 2021 and 2022, we probably didn't put enough emphasis on this. You've got lots of different companies coming together. You've got lots of different cultures coming together. You've got people from different countries coming into New Zealand. And everyone's trying to build the solar plant and everyone's trying to do their part to get their part of the project finished and hopefully make a margin, get projects delivered on time, get the quality right, manage the health and safety. And all these companies are quite different. Even within New Zealand, we all have different drivers. So this is something that we've really leant into over the last 6 months, is trying to get very clear alignment between the new energy team, the companies that work with us, our partner subcontractors, and also the people we work for. So we get really good clarity around what's important to you, when do you want things done, what does the reporting look like, who needs to know these things, so there's no surprises for us or for you on the journey. Another big learning, a little bit embarrassing, this is about design. And so we typically get a phone call and they say, would you like to price a solar plant up? We say yes. We get a zip file and there's sometimes 500, 600, 700 documents in that zip file. And people say, can you give us a price in a couple of weeks? And then you'll have a principles requirements document that's, fairly extensive and covers a lot of things. So designs can be really complex. And somebody somewhere making a line on a drawing could take a lot of cost away or add a lot of cost. They could speed up a project or slow down a project. So something that might seem really simple to somebody sitting in an office in Sydney might be really difficult to achieve on a site in Gisborne or Kaitaia or somewhere else. Sometimes there's absent detail, so there's gaps missing or there's something that we don't have the answer to. And we get asked about it by one of our partners on the team. So we go back and ask that question, and sometimes it's a simple answer and it's quick, and other times it's, we don't know, we need to figure that out. And that might take days or weeks. Being involved from our side in the constructability review is really important, because that's our time to learn about the project. It's also our time to ask lots of questions back to the client, the EPC or the developer. And I've touched on the offshore designers' time delays. So sometimes those things are really quick. They can be overnight. Other times it's, I don't know the answer. This could take a few weeks to redesign an element of something. It can be really simple, can be really complex, and often you don't actually know what it's going to be until you ask. Estimating. So this is probably the biggest learning for us, and where I spend a lot of my time in the company is in this space. We break every job down to the smallest part we can get. So when someone rings up and says, can you put in 10,000 piles, there's about 30 or 40 questions we need to get answered to be able to really accurately do that. So we try to take as much time as we can and throw as much resource at those things to learn as much as we can before we put a proposal back to somebody. The optimistic versus pessimistic view. I don't know how many job sites I've been to, and I'll use wind farms as an example, where the client always says to me, there's no rocks in the ground. And almost every site I've been to, there's something somewhere in the ground. So some people in project teams take a really optimistic view, other people take a really pessimistic view. And our view is you've got to sort of get somewhere in the middle. You should risk assess all of these things. You should do as much testing, you should gather as much data as you can to make an informed view and share that view with whoever you're working for. This is how we came up with that number. This is how we anticipated the weather delays based on this meteorological data. We don't just say it's going to rain 50 days out of 100, right? We use as much data as we can and we explain how we've come up with what we've come up with. Engaging early, pretty obvious. Getting the sequence right. So Matt talked a little bit about it from the electrical side. Making sure that we're doing all the things at the right time to achieve someone's deadline and the timeline that they're working to. That's been a big learning for us. We used to think back a year ago, we were putting a tender in and we would do nothing until the client rang us up and said, you got it or you didn't get it. Now we put the tender in and we keep engaging all the way along. Can we start building a timeline? Even if we don't win it, we've just gained ourselves a few weeks or a few months in the timeline. And the right equipment, and I touched on that a little bit earlier around things like topography, weather, wind. It sounds really dumb, but if you're building a tracking system and you're 1.92 metres off the ground and you've employed a whole lot of people that are 5 foot tall, that's a challenge. And so having the right equipment and the right tools for all of the people on the project. Learning around logistics. So we totally underestimated this a year ago. And there are just so many things that all have to come together, and they have to come together at the right time. And I've shown some of my team this slide, and they all sort of said, it's so obvious, Scott. And I said, yep, it is obvious, but we didn't get it right on our first 2 projects. You either have a whole lot of people standing around with no work to do because they haven't got something that's been delivered, was meant to have been delivered, or you've got all these solar panels turn up and you've got no one employed to install them. So we're trying really hard to, through constructability reviews, through the program timelines, through all the engagements we're having with our customers to really crack this problem, because this is one of our keys to being successful. All of these things have to coalesce. They all have to arrive at the right time in the program. And we have to take those things, put them together at the right speed for the overall timeline. But this is probably the single most important slide, is getting everything lining up together as best you can. And again, we go back to the data. If you don't have a high percentage of what we call delivery and full on time, DIFOT, if you don't have a high DIFOT of things coming into site, then your program's going to slip, or you're going to have a big blowout in cost. People, I said earlier, this is probably the question I get asked most often. We generally want to have about a 15 to 20% workforce coming in from out of the region with some skills and expertise. So we've hired a number of people internationally. There's not a lot of solar expertise in New Zealand building stuff. It's all in Australia or other countries. So about 20% of the workforce on a site under our model is people we bring in that have knowledge and have experience. The other 80% are people locally. And so we really believe it's important to give the communities an opportunity to participate in this. So we put a lot of effort into hiring them, recruiting them, training them, doing competency assessment to make sure that they're doing it right, putting QA in straight behind them. So as soon as we've delivered a piece of the work, we're checking it straight away. We're not waiting 3 or 4 weeks to check something and then we realise we haven't put a nut in the right place or we've done something wrong and we've got a massive remediation problem to address. So people is probably the most dynamic part, apart from the weather. This is our next biggest challenge. Recruiting early in the regions we think we're going to. So even before we win a tender, we go out and look in a region and say, how many people could we hire in Palmerston North or Gore or Kaitaia? We go out and engage with the communities. We get a sense of, are there 50 people looking for work or are there 10? Because if we go and offer a job to someone and then we can't resource it, we're dead. The right equipment. So I've got lots and lots of photos of lots of equipment stuck in mud, underwater, birds' nests and things, and all sorts of things that go on normal construction sites. We underestimated the way that weather would impact our ability to deliver. And everyone said to me, it's a tracked vehicle, it'll be fine. But when the mud's 700 mil deep and you've had 1,000 movements through a gateway over the last few months, it doesn't matter how wide or how long the track is, you can't drive through it. And so you need to have the right equipment, you need to have a really good quality program to anticipate those things so it's not a surprise that you have to react to halfway through a program. Weather is our biggest challenge in New Zealand. And if I could have $1 for every time someone said there's no rock in the ground, the other one would be, we'll build our plant in the summer. So it would be lovely if it was always summer, and it would be lovely if we could only ever build in the summer, but we need to be a construction company and we need to be across New Zealand. All of us need to be able to operate 12 months of the year. So weather, anticipating for it, planning for it, having contingency plans for it, having the right gear for your team to operate in all kinds of weather. Rain, mud, wind are the 3 big ones for us. You've got to plan for that. And if you don't plan for that, Wish you the best to try and build just in the summer. Thank you very much for your time.